Let's talk about why validating in our deployments is important. We want to ensure that the changes we expected to make on our end system are the ones that were actually deployed to the system. It's especially true in databases where we deal with many different objects, all with separate files. In application code, this can be easy because our files can typically compare to what was output by the CI process. We can generate a hash value or a thumbprint or even use code signing to determine that the files in the artifact repository were actually what were copied to the client or server system. But for a database system, we typically have many different objects we need to look at. We need to compare the database schema, and even potentially the data, to the state of the code that was output by our CI process, which is not necessarily a simple thing to do. There are different ways of doing this. We'll do it one way in state-based, one day in migration-based development, so let's look at those. For state-based deployment, we'll have a package that's output from CI, which comes from our version control system and contains a state of every object that's in the database at that point in time. And we can certainly use this package to verify deployment, just as we use it to build the upgrade script. Once we've completed the deployment, a comparison between the package and the final database should produce no differences. Any errors should be noted and logged, but verification ensures that all the changes we want to deploy were actually completed in the process. It can be slightly complex with data changes, but certainly for the state of the objects, we can do that. In migration-based development, what we actually want to ensure that we're doing is tracking which migration scripts have been run and then ensure we're only running new ones. Now, when we're doing a deployment, though, we have a table of some sort that will track which files have been run in what order. That way we ensure that everything is deployed correctly. When we want to compare this to deployment, we should be able to look at our package and determine if all the files that were included in there were actually executed and stored in our table. Most of the frameworks that do migration systems will actually log all the changes, so we just need to make sure that we have a comparison that tells us if all those scripts were actually deployed. And then we come to data changes. This is one of the more complex problems in database deployments because when data is included as part of the release, it can be difficult to actually detect if all those changes were performed correctly. This is especially true where we might be dealing with data at scale, and to check all of those rows, all the different values, is problematic. For example, maybe we've split a column into two new columns. There may not be a really easy way to determine if all the data is correct. We've got thousands, millions, billions of rows here. It could take a tremendous amount of time to actually verify that. In this case, the best way to do this is to check a set of rows, a set of representative data changes to be sure that the data manipulation is correct. For example, we may take 12 different names that represent different types of manipulations and ensure that the end result is what we expect. The idea to do this is that you're going to have to look at scripts that will do that comparison for specific rows, right? You'll know the end result of these changes, and you'll have to check that the actual results in the table match your expectations. Very much like a unit test, but it's something we want to run post-deployment. And in fact, these scripts actually function as somewhat of a smoke test for your deployment and really should be included as the last step of your deployment before you declare it complete or successful. As with unit tests, we want to make sure that if there are any issues we detected, we return a failure because we know the data is incorrect and somebody needs to go examine the deployment process. All the checks that you can run here will help you ensure that you've actually deployed the correct code to your final system and that nothing has been forgotten. That's often a case in previous deployments where the database has been problematic and that we'll forget to deploy an object or we'll forget to change something. We want to ensure that for this purposes, when we're doing a DevOps deployment, that everything has actually been deployed that we expect to be deployed.